Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio, and a happy October to all of you. And by the way, before we go any further today, we got a show today about school violence, which is going to be really good with Amy Klinger. But I just want to say there has been a lot of press about this in the paper the last few days, but Hurricane Helene hit last week, and there's a lot of damage, as everybody knows, down in the southeast, especially around Asheville. And I'm sure all those schools are closed. Kids can't get to school. The roads are down. The electricity's down, et cetera, et cetera. We wish them the best, okay? And I know everybody does. But there's been a lot of press about it at all. But that whole southeast area is in a real serious situation. So I hope everything works out well for them. And believe me, they have my best wishes for a quick recovery down there. And we got to recover nationwide about school safety. Okay, a strange segue, but it's really very, very important after the shooting in Appalachia, and we got to do something. When that happened, Amy got in touch with me. I got in touch with Amy, and Dr. Amy Klinger, our guest today, is the director of programs and the founder of the EDUCATOR'S School Safety Network. And I have it linked here. And Amy, good morning to you. It's Larry here. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Where are you today?
I'm in Ohio with a cold, along with everyone else in Ohio, I think.
I'm sorry, you have a cold. Okay? Ohio's a big place. What part of Ohio are you in?
Northwest Ohio.
Northwest Ohio. Near Toledo? Are you in Toledo?
Yeah. Just outside of Toledo.
There you go. See, I know my geography. That's good. I'm glad you're on the show with us today. Yeah, I get an A+. I used to be a history teacher. I got to know geography.
There you go.
It's just there you go. Okay, and since you're in Toledo, the Detroit Lions won last night, so I'm thrilled about that. Okay, so that's actually a good question. We get into school safety, football. Browns, Lions, you're right in the middle between the two.
Oh,
Bengals?
I could care less. That's an unpopular answer, but I could care less about any of those teams, actually. I'm only a sports fan when my kids are playing it.
There you go, and it's an honest answer, Amy. It's a pleasure to have you here. Tell us about your school, your EDUCATOR'S School Safety Network.
We are a national nonprofit, and we work throughout the United States. We're unique in the sense that we come from an education perspective. I am a career educator, teacher, principal, school administrator, and so much of the work of school safety comes entirely from a law enforcement perspective. Now, that's not a knock on law enforcement, but the work of school safety needs to be all hazards and comprehensive, and most significantly, it needs to be education focused, because the first responders are the teachers in those classrooms that encounter violence or medical emergencies or accidents. So those are the folks, boots on the ground, who are actually dealing with these situations, and they have sort of been left out of the conversation and training around school safety.
Yeah, actually they have, although a lot of people recommend, and I don't necessarily agree with this, that the teachers carry guns. Okay, and that's been kind of the response to all this from, regarding the teachers. What do you have to say on that? Just out of curiosity.
That's the least of the things that can be done. And that's not a statement about guns or gun control.
Right,
it is a statement about the reality of what you want to prepare teachers to be able to do. Statistically, teachers are going to face things like medical emergencies, accidents, an angry parent, a severe weather event. They are not statistically going to face an active shooter or a situation where carrying a weapon is going to be beneficial. So we believe that we should prepare people for what they're actually going to encounter and not buy into the political back and forth of whether guns are helpful or not helpful, or whether whatever all those other discussions might be. We want teachers to be prepared for what's actually going to happen to them.
And statistically, and I know you have a new report on this out there, talk about you just kind of mentioned it quickly, but talk about it. Because obviously school shootings, that's the big thing, and everybody's concerned about that. But that happens rarely. Okay, it's a big deal when it happens, and I don't mean to make light of it, but it happens rarely. Okay, when you go in and talk to schools and work with schools about the Educators School Safety Network, what do you tell them? Where do they go? Where do they start? What do they do? Where's school safety really hit home?
Well, here's the thing. We in schools need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. So we have to be concerned about an active shooter because it is the most horrific of tragedies.
Yes,
and
it is.
So clearly we need to know that those can occur. We need to acknowledge that violence with guns is a problem. We need to be trained and concerned about that. However, we also have to acknowledge that when a child dies because they got hit by a school bus because we didn't have enough supervision, or a child dies because they went into anaphylactic shock and we didn't know what to do, or a child dies because of some other instance medically in our schools, that's a tragedy too. And what we know from our research is that the most common events are in terms of violence, that they're typically going to not necessarily involve a traditional active shooter, but they are going to involve some kind of violence that spills into the building. They are going to involve shots fired, but not a active shooter. They are going to involve a gun present on campus, but not actually being shot. And there are going to be a whole host of other things that aren't measured as violence, but are still safety issues, like medical emergencies, accidents, bus accidents, an intruder who wanders in to steal iPhones or to take a child they don't have custody of. So all of these things happen, and what we hear from teachers in the field is, yes, they are concerned about school safety in terms of an active shooter, but they are more concerned with what they encounter every day, which is violent and aggressive students that they don't know what to do with because they have not been given training in how to de-escalate, in how to deal with aggressive behavior, how to deal with kids that come from outside the community into the school to beat up someone, a parent who comes in and is aggressive with the staff and students. So those things happen every single day in our schools, and we're not training people in how to deal with them, and we're not working to prevent that. So we need to be able to do both active shooter response, because it's rare but horrific, and the daily work of what's happening at a lower level of violence, but it is still hurting people, disrupting our schools, and impacting kids.
And who is anybody, and I know you guys are, and I want you to talk about this because you do have a school safety course out there. It's available online. I don't want to be it's not a commercial, but I want everybody to know that I have it linked here. You can go over, and Amy and your daughter Amanda, I believe, works with you, and you guys will work with schools and school districts about this. And I have to say, Jude, where does the challenge lie in terms of who's responsible for this? Are you going to work with administrators more than teachers? Okay, where's it settled in within a school? Is it the administrative? I know your answer is going to be both, and I'm just curious where we are on this.
Well, it has to be both. You're right. We have to start with the leadership. This is a leadership issue. When you have school leaders who are not paying attention to an all-hazards comprehensive approach to safety, your school is less safe and your teachers are less safe. But it also, just like every other school initiative, it really comes down to the implementation at the classroom level with the teachers. and the teachers are the ones that are going to be responding. And we have to get away from this idea that school safety is the principal's job and no one else, because the principal clearly is the leader of the school and is the one who directs or leads this initiative. But it is the teachers who need to have the training and the empowerment to make decisions, because when you see these horrific events happening, it is the teachers who are dealing with them, the teachers who are walking up to find the kid collapsed on the playground, the teachers who are encountering the angry parent yelling at them in their classroom. It's not the principal that's finding those things. It's not the superintendent. It's the teachers. So when we come in to do training, we train every single person that collects a paycheck from that organization, because they all have a role to play. The custodian, the bus driver, the teacher, the cafeteria worker, they all have a role to play, and they all have a function and a responsibility when it comes to safety. And if they have that function and that responsibility, then we have a responsibility as leaders to train them and to give them the tools they need to respond to the events. And this is what I think we're missing, to the events we know are going to happen. This is not well, maybe someday we might have an accident at our school. It is, you 100% will.
Yes.
And that's what I find so frustrating about it sometimes, is that people act surprised that they got a threat. They act surprised that there was a tornado. They act surprised that, a kid was unsupervised and left. They act surprised that these things happen. They happen every day. It is not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Amy, I got to ask, and this is always a question I ask a lot of people who do a lot of training, all right, in schools. And one of the things I found, and I know you were a professor, and you were more than likely a professor at an education school, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I have to ask, the education schools, and this is just a stereotypical statement, okay, they seem to be behind in those. When someone gets their certification, their degree in administration, okay, are they walking out prepared to handle what schools are like now in terms of safety? Not schools are
no.
It used to be academics. Period. We're trained to handle curriculum. We're trained to handle scheduling. Okay, but now safety is as much, if not more important, but not more important, but certainly as important. Okay, where do the colleges who are licensing administrators, giving degrees to administrators, what are they doing about this? How has administrator training changed in light of, well, I'll say it, since Columbine, since 1998 or 99, whatever that was?
It has not changed as much as it needs to. 100%, that's true. That is really something that we have been working very diligently on, is trying to get educator preparation programs to include school safety as a requirement for licensure, or at least for completion of the program. Because you're right, this is the one thing, the most important skill, the most important thing you're going to do. And here's how I phrase it when I do media interviews. Today is, a school day. There is nothing in any school that is going to go on today in school. There's nothing that is more important than making sure those kids get home at the end of the day. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it is absolutely true. So there is nothing you as a teacher or you as a principal are going to do today that is more important than making sure that everybody gets home safe at the end of the day, period. So our preparation programs have to start with that. It cannot be, this is an extra thing that maybe if we have time, we're going to do a little bit of conversation about safety. We have to start with it because it is our primary responsibility as educators. And so that is one significant improvement that has to take place, because that's how you actually solve school safety. You send people into the field with the skills and capabilities that they need. You don't send them into the school, into the field, and go, well, I hope they do okay. Well, I hope nothing bad happens to them. You send them with what they need to do their primary job.
And Amy, just simply, what do they need? Okay, and we do send people in unprepared. We send administrators in unprepared. What do they need? And I know that's the basis of your course, but just what do they need? You just had to boil it down.
Yeah, philosophically, they need the ability to see school safety and to integrate safety and violence prevention as part of the daily work, like an app running in the background. They need to be able to do the things that they do and be able to think in a little bit different way about what could go wrong here. What are the safety concerns here? How am I aware of my situation? They are not supposed to be, we are not saying they should be hypervigilant and afraid and paranoid. We are saying that in the background, quietly running, is always the awareness of safety concerns, do we have enough supervision? Do we know where all the students are? Have we accounted for kids? Who is that person over there? Let me greet them and see what's going on with that. That thing shouldn't be here. Let me move that. This door needs to be latched. Let me close that. As you go about the daily work, that becomes second nature. It's building habits and capabilities. It is not turning teachers into little law enforcement guys. It's not having teachers running around paranoid and hysterical. It is empowering and quietly aware of the things that we need to do. And they almost always revolve around supervision, situational awareness, and an understanding of the dynamics of where you are and what's going on where you are.
When you try, I'm going to ask you this. How long has the School Safety Network been around?
Since 2012.
2012. So we're talking, a good dozen years now. Okay, you've worked with schools for a long time now, 12 years. Okay, and you were in the business long before that. Okay, you see the change. Talk to me about the schools you've worked with, and I know you continually talk and continue to check in with them, etc. How are they doing? What are you hearing from them about all this? They must be, having had your training, they must feel a lot more confident, I would hope they do, about going into work every day, okay, and getting the job done. What are you hearing from? Talk about the folks you work with, the schools you work with.
Yeah, actually, we were in a school yesterday, so that would have been September 30th. In a school that we had talked to in August as part of their beginning work. And it was very interesting that we were in this district and we did, a training with each one of the schools. And the amount they had made, I wouldn't say it was huge. They hadn't solved the problems in 30 days, but it was so interesting to see some of the changes, minor changes they had made in that 30 days. And how they were able to articulate what a difference it made, that they felt already like, okay, we made some steps, because what's education about? We are about continuous improvement. And they began to see the path forward of, we changed this one small thing, and then we agreed and came to a consensus that we were going to do this small thing. And then that led to an understanding that we had to fix this next thing. And in 30 days, they had felt that already they had changed 2 or 3 things that made a significant impact on their comfort and their empowerment of feeling like we can do these things that we need to do. Because one of the issues in school safety at the beginning is this feeling of overwhelming, like how can I do this? Like, there's so much. I'm up against so many different threats and so many different potential problems that you really have to approach it with that continuous improvement mindset. I'm going to eat this elephant one bite at a time. Because in 2024, the only thing you can't do is nothing. In 2024, you start incremental improvements because you are going to face these events. And so you begin to make incremental changes and you begin that process. Anything you do is better than the unfortunate schools that are sitting around with their fingers crossed, hoping that nothing bad happens to them, when we know, in fact, something is going to happen. When you put 800 kids in a school building together, somebody's going to fall. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to be sick. Something's going to happen. So we know that you're going to face these things. And so I think the mistake schools make is they take this all or nothing. We're going to do, either we're going to fix it all or we're just going to cross our fingers and hope for the best. And they take an active shooter orientation, and that's all they worry about. And that's a very dangerous school to be in.
Yeah, and I fell into that same trap when I started the show. And my first thought was to talk about what happened at Appalachia. But again, that's a rarity.
Yeah, but remember your segue when you said the people impacted by the hurricane and that it wasn't a good segue. It is a perfect segue.
Thank you.
Because those schools are going to deal with safety issues for months, if not years. They were dealing with safety issues for the last week or two. And so those kind of things are what we ignore when we are only looking at what the media covers of an active shooter event. And we are missing the tragedies that are occurring every single day. The work that we do, I see those tragedies. Kids that collapse on a playground and nobody sees because we don't have enough supervision. Kids that fall off things. Kids that are taken by a non-custodial parent because no one was paying attention. Kids who are sexually assaulted because we left all the rooms open and we allowed a predator to take them into a room that should have been locked. Those tragedies occur every single day. And those are the things that schools really need to be concerned about.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, it all gets lost in the shuffle. And I was on your website, and I noticed your daughter who works with you. She's director of operations. She's an attorney. Okay, and all the things. And all the things you're saying, you bring the education side. Okay, but all the things that you're saying, and I don't mean to break down someone's health and safety into economics, but I guess we can. Okay, I guess I'm doing it. Is the way I would say it. But school districts have to be very careful. There's a lot of legalities here. You are responsible, loco parentis, the whole thing, and you have to be really, really careful about all this. And I like the way you bring in the legal side with your daughter and the education side with you. And you said something. You said you were in the school district yesterday, and that I think you said you spoke to all the different schools. I'm assuming in elementary, middle, high school. And when you talk about school safety, is it different in elementary school than it is in high school? When you go in and look at it, what does an elementary school teacher have to know, or an elementary school principal have to know, different from a high school teacher, or maybe they don't? Is there a difference?
Well, there is a difference in terms of the developmentally appropriateness of the way that we interact with students and train them in response to things. But many of the same issues take place. Our report looks at that, you're talking about a third of the time, about 33% of the time, these incidents are occurring in an elementary school. And it's really come to the point where the violent incidents that we're tracking are fairly evenly distributed across elementary, middle school, and high school. So the days of people going, well, I'm an elementary teacher, I don't have to worry about that, those were shattered on the day of Sandy Hook. But also when you go beyond the thinking of an active shooter and you think about all of these other things, those same things can happen at an elementary school that can happen at a secondary school. And I think that you're increasingly seeing at the elementary more aggressive behavior on the part of students, more aggressive behavior on the part of parents, and this outside violence spilling into the school. All of those things happening at the elementary level with almost as much frequency as the secondary level. And I don't say that to scare people. I say that to say there is something we can do. This would be different if all we could do is admire the problem. We can't. There's so much we can do. It's not like, oh, well, this is just the way it has to be. This is not the way it has to be.
We've got to actually do it. Right?
There's so much that we can do. And you alluded to the legal side. There's incredible liability for schools, and it's not just on these high-profile events. There's a lot of liability in lower-level events, and there's also that notion of protecting your asset of trust and reputation. That's right. So let's say that you have a kid that just gets beat up in the hallway by 5 or 6 other kids, because it happens all the time. That kid is maybe not going to have permanent damage. He is not going to be killed by that event, but that undermines and impacts what you're trying to do in that school. It undermines the trust and reputation and feeling of safety of everybody that works there, all the kids that attend there, all the parents that send their kids there. So even these lower level events have a really significant impact on climate and culture and academic performance. If you want better performance, you have to have more safety.
Yeah, and there's another side to this that I've been thinking about as you've been talking, and that is, you know, when you talk about why teachers leave, okay, most of them really enjoy teaching. They like having kids learn. It's all the other stuff that gets in the way of the learning. Okay, drives them crazy, quite honestly, and they leave. Okay, and I just talk about what you've learned when teachers, when educators and schools go through your training. I would imagine that teacher morale goes up a little bit. Okay, that they suddenly realize there's other stuff we can do to nip these problems in the bud. Okay, which makes for a better learning environment. What's your thought on that, about how this affects teacher retention, teacher morale, etc.? The better understanding of a school's safety needs.
Absolutely. You know, and it's not just teacher retention; it's also people entering the field. People looking at going into education and go, I don't want. If I go into education, I'm going to get shot. The way that some people
That's the way a lot of people look at it.
At this.
Yep.
And so it does impact teacher retention. It does impact teacher induction. You know, there is been a number of different studies that have looked at fully anywhere from 40 to 50% of teachers currently in the field are considering leaving either their current position or the field, and it's all because of violent and aggressive behavior. And when you look at a school staff that has together committed a leadership team that is committed to the safety of their teachers, people want to work there. People want to stay there. As opposed to, you alluded to our school safety course. We have a school safety course that is online on demand. The reason we made it, the reason we implemented it, is because teachers were coming up to us and saying, I feel like I'm the only person in my school who is concerned about this, and I need to know what to do to protect myself and my kids. And so people tragically are taking this course because they aren't getting the training and support from the districts in which they're working. And so those people are either going to get this information from us and build their capacity, or they're going to leave that district, or they're going to leave the field because they are wanting skills and capabilities that no one's giving them.
It's amazing. Amy, thank you so much. And thank you and Amanda for the work you guys do. I think it's just great. And I have everything linked here on site. And I'm going to send you a copy of this, and I hope you can let the word out on all that we're doing, and we're going to let the word out on all you're doing. Amy Klinger, Dr. Klinger,
Perfect.
Thank you. This has been great.
Thank you so much.
You take care. I will talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Amy. Bye-bye. Wow. Something to be said there, huh? That's Dr. Amy Klinger, founder, program director of the EDUCATOR'S School Safety Network. It's all linked here for obvious reasons. So check it out. I'm Larry Jacobs, Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. Thanks for listening.